So today is lesson 11. And what we're going to do today is we're going to continue on with our authentication process that we started last week. And just to kind of give you a preview, ours is going to look a little different, but I'll show you from the morning class kind of what we managed to achieve. And you can get a sense of what, or we're going to do it a little bit differently this afternoon. But I'll show you how we implemented security in our morning class. So while I'm doing this, you can make sure you get connected to the VPN, start up your local web server, and you can open your PHP Tunes application. So here's what we did. This morning we'll do similar things today, but ours is going to be a little more complicated. So I moved the register and login links over here. And when I go to my main page, notice my links for adding, editing, and deleting, they are hidden. So I can't actually see those pages. And if I try to browse to one of them directly, let's say to add a new movie, instead my access is restricted and I get redirected to the login page. Once I log in, you'll notice several things are going to change. Now when I come back to the movies page, my ability to add, edit, or delete is restored, and also my register and login links disappear, and my username and logout show up instead. And when I'm logged in, now that I'm logged in, I have access to go ahead and add, edit, or delete again. As soon as I log out, my navigation toggles back. And now, once again, I have a read-only view of the data. So this is how we implemented authentication in my morning class. Ours is going to be similar, but we are going to add a few wrinkles, because one of the things that we added based on, I can't remember whose suggestion last week at the end of class, was somebody asked, well, can we link our particular artist just to our account directly? So yes, so we've got kind of a bit of an extra complexity here in ours. So let's get our application up and running. And then we're going to start to implement some of these same security checks that we did last week. And so our register and logins are working, I believe. So if I put in an invalid login, then I'm returned to the login page. There's a URL parameter, invalid, and it now shows me a blue message. It keeps me here. If I put in a valid credential, and I'll throw it in the chat just in case anybody forgot it last week, we all registered with the account test@test.com, and test1234 is our password. Once I log in, I get taken to the artist's page. So this is where we left off last week. However, there's a number of limitations. We didn't complete this. First of all, there's no indication that I'm actually logged in, number one. But number two, even in a private window, there's not actually any authentication check. So I can go to this page whether I'm logged in or not. Just to prove this, I will grab this URL. I'll go to a different browser entirely. And I can still load my artist details page so that I could add or edit an artist even when I haven't logged into the site. So these pages are still public. So let's deal first with our authentication check, and then we'll come back and work on our navigation bar. So what we're going to do, open up our project. So the first thing, so we've got several pages that right now everything's public, but we have several pages that we want to convert into private pages. Which files here? We're primarily concerned with managing the artists. So which pages should we add a security check to? so that somebody's got to be logged in order for them to access any of those pages. Which files need an authentication check? Yes, thanks, right, Mike? So artist details, which is our form for adding or editing. Delete artist, definitely. Yep. And there is one more. Which other page? Thank you, Mike. You've answered your own question. So all of these, so the form for adding and editing, there's our artist details, our delete artist page, as well as our save artist page. Anonymous users shouldn't have access to any of these. Now our artists, our main artist page, we'll kind of deal with this one later. But we'll deal first with artist details, save artist, and delete. So we're going to run the same authentication check on all of these. So the simplest way to do this would just be to create an include file. So I'm going to right click my includes directory. Let's make a new file. I'm going to call it auth.php. So what we want to do is clear out the session object that contains the username. Sorry. I'm thinking about logout, which we will come to. So what we want to do here on auth is check the session for a username var. If exists, user is authenticated. Not anonymous. So someone who is logged in is going to have a session variable called username. How do I know this? Well, because we did this last week. We added this to our validation page. When a login was successful, we accessed the current session, and then we wrote this session variable with their username. So we can say if not empty, actually, sorry, I'm going to change the logic. If it is empty, we will take the user back to the login page. We're going to redirect the login, and then we'll call exit. So stop, don't do anything else. And this is an include file. I don't even really need those closing PHP tags. By convention, we usually omit them from an include file if there is only PHP script and no HTML. So now we can try this out. We can require this page at the very top of our movie details. And then we can try this out in two different browsers. One browser where we're logged in, and that should allow us to load the movie details. And then in a separate browser where we are not logged in, and when we try it, we should get taken to the login page. Okay, so again, this is our auth file. We've put it in the includes folder because it's not a standalone page. It's just a library or a component that we will require from any page where we're only allowing authenticated users in. So we'll try it first on our artist details. And it's going to be the very first line. So if there's no session variable, all the rest of the code, nothing happens after line 2. Because our auth file, it's going to look for this session variable. And if it hasn't been set We're just going to take the user to log in and stop the execution of the rest of the code. Okay, so we want this before the header. There's no point starting to print out all the HTML of the header if our user hasn't logged in. So let's try this. I'll go back to Firefox. I'll make sure I log in. And now I'm going to click Add a New Artist. Okay, now that didn't work, did it? I just logged in, which means once my login was checked, it should have set this session variable. So that's kind of weird behavior, isn't it? And yet when we checked, this condition returned true. This is a common gotcha and one of the things that drives me nuts about PHP. Remember, last week, before we wrote this session variable, we made a call to session start. This is an annoying feature of PHP. We cannot access any session variables if we don't call session start first. So our code here is correct, it's just incomplete. We've got to call session start, which is annoying. Other web frameworks don't require this. So before we can read from that session collection, we must initialize it. So I'm going to go back and try my code again. I expect it should work now. So we've got to make this session start call before reading from or writing to a session variable. Only once per page. If we're going to access multiple session variables, we don't need to call session start repeatedly. In fact, we don't want to. We'll see in a minute. Tyler, technically no, but in order to get the code hinting and have my code editor recognize that this is PHP code, we should. So I will try it again. I'll go to log in again. And now I'm going to go to add. And this time it lets me in. Right? By calling session start, the server can read my username, session variable, and it will let me in. Or if I go to edit an existing artist, I can access this file when I am logged into the site. Now we want to make sure this security check is working for anonymous users as well. So in Chrome, I'm not logged in. I'll go to artists, and now when I try to add a new artist, I get redirected to the login page. If I go to edit, I get redirected. If I try to just browse directly, again, the page is now locked. So the only way I can access it is to have an active session. So we want to require this file, as Mike said. This should also be the first line of delete artist and save artist. Those pages are public right now. So I could still, in Chrome where I'm not logged in, I could still go here directly. Sure. I haven't changed the validate file. So this is on GitHub as well from last week. It's unchanged. No problem, Connor. Connor, I sent you an email, by the way. So we're going to add the same auth check from artist details. This should be line 1. Password again is test1234 with a capital T. I put it in the chat. I'm going to go to delete artist. And again, my first thing I'm going to do here now is include auth. So the delete page is no longer accessible to anonymous users. We're converting this file, which was public, it's now private. And I'm going to copy that require statement again and also put it on save artist. So now all 3 of those pages are private. So if somebody wants to add, edit, or delete an artist, they've got to have an account and they have to have gone through our login page in order to access any of those files. Okay, so this was step 1. So we've secured access to those pages now. You cannot get here. So if I try to go to my delete artist page in my anonymous browser, oh, whoops, I didn't save my change. That would help. Gotten really bad at saving. So now when I refresh it, it sends me to log in. Now we're not done yet. I mean, we've secured access to that page, but there's a bunch of other work we need to do. We need to add some logic in our navigation bar so that the links will change when we log in. We need to add a logout feature. And then we're going to need to do some other work because here as an anonymous user, I can't, these links will take me to login, but I shouldn't even see the add, delete, or edit links when I'm not logged into the site. So we're gonna kind of need 2 versions of this page as well. One version where we can maybe see all the artists in the database, and then another version where we can see our own artists that are tied to our accounts. So we'll start with the navigation bar and log out, and then we'll kind of rebuild and refactor our artists page. But we will start with our navigation bar. So I'm going to go into my includes folder and open up my header. First thing is actually just a bit of formatting, which is I want to put the register and login links, I want to justify them to the right side of the nav bar. So right now they're inside of this UL with a class of navbar nav. I'm going to create a second UL with the same class, but then I'm going to add MS auto. That will right justify this list. And then I'm going to move register and log in into this separate list. So that's going to move register and log in, which right now appear right beside my artist link. It's going to move them off to the right. Okay, so register and log in, they now appear over here. So the output that we're looking for, again, just to show you from my morning class, my output is this. So register and login are here, but if I log in, now I get this instead. I get my username and log out. And if I log out, register and login come back. So we can add those other links here. Let's just do this for a minute. I'll copy my register and login links. I'm going to change on the third one. That one link will just be a dead link. And the last one is going to say logout.php, which we'll build in a minute. Logout's going to be a pretty simple form. Yeah, it's because I'm sharing the session. I'm loading two different sites on the same server, same domain, so that's why, Connor. Because I toggled back to my morning application. It won't normally do that. So how are we going to decide? We don't want to show all of these links. So our username will go here. So right now, this will show all 4 links over on the right. I got all 4 of these, but we never should see all 4 of these together. We either want to see these when we're anonymous, and we'll want to see these when we are logged in. So what are we going to need to do in this section? How do we know which 2 links to show and which 2 links to hide? You got it, right? That's right, Mike. We can check the session variable. If it's empty, we'll show register and log in. If it's not empty, that means the user is authenticated, so we're going to show these links instead. So indent, throw on a set of PHP tags, which I'll close down at the bottom. And we can use a simple if statement and then echo out these links or echo out those links. So we can say if empty, oops. So if our session variable is empty, we'll echo out the register and login links. So there's no session variable. The user is anonymous, so show those links. And then we'll wrap our other set of links, oops, in a separate echo command. Indent so my code's a bit more readable. So now we're never going to print all 4 links out. We're either showing register and login, or we're showing, we'll also have to fix this. We don't want it to say username here as a literal. We'll actually want to print out our session variable. But let's just try this and see how it goes. So I'm going to log in. So right now I'm anonymous. Well, let's see, Mike. I've logged in. Yes, we do, right? It logged me in, but this still never toggled. So absolutely, we need session start. Because this is always going to return true. It's always going to be empty if we don't call session start. So we're going to add the session start before we try to read the session variable. So notice now, as soon as I refresh, automatically it's now showing my username and logout. Now logout doesn't exist yet. We're going to have to build that. It's going to be a pretty simple page. Log in. And I can tell from my navigation bar that I have an active session right now. So let's fix this. Let's overwrite this. Here, Dominic. I created these in a separate UL, separate from the original UL. And I use this class of MS Auto. That right justifies those links. So I've broken up what was a single list into two lists. One that's left justified and one that's right justified. Okay, so you saw that, yeah, it's MS dash. Now down here, we're going to get rid of this little placeholder. And we can actually print out our session variable. So this should now show my email address instead of that little placeholder that I used. So now it shows test@test.com. So that's all doing pretty well, right? Mike, that was a good catch that we needed session start. Without session start, our nav bar never showed the username and log out, even when we logged in. There's one little gotcha using session start. This seems to work fine, right? Thank you. Ah, Mike, I'm glad you found that. Right? When I go to add a new artist, exactly what I wanted to show. The page loads, but look at this. We get a warning. We are ignoring session start because it's already active. So Mike, this is exactly the error that you got. So if you click on an artist or click on add a new artist, the page will load. We are logged in, so we've got access. What does this mean? And why do you suppose we got this message? And also, why does it happen on artist details, but artist is fine? There's no warning here. Yet here we get session start, session is already active. Any thoughts on what this means, why it's happening? Okay, Mike, you're close. Tuani's got the right answer. Let's take a look at the flow in artist details, right? The first thing that happens is it includes our auth file. So in our auth file, we want to check the session variable, so we call session start, right? That's the very first thing that happens. Then this, if we're logged in, the code keeps executing. We go back to artist details, and then it includes our header. In our header, we output a bunch of HTML, and then we come to line 30, and we call session start again. PHP doesn't like this. It gives us a warning saying you can't call session start again because you already called it from the auth file. So what we'll do, so there's a little workaround for this, which we'll implement. How come we don't get this error, though, on the artist page? My artist page loads fine. There's no warning. why does this only happen when I go to add or edit? Yet when I'm viewing the list, it's totally fine. Idan, you've got it. You're on the right track. You just have it reversed. Right. So artist details, because it's a private page, it calls auth. And auth calls session start. Our artist page is public, so it doesn't call the auth file. So session start is only called once. So what we want to do is make sure we only call session start if it hasn't already been called. And this is for each HTTP request, so each time a page loads. So we can say if there's a method, and it's not a property, it's a method, session status. This is built into PHP. If it is equal to, and there's a constant here, if it's equal to session none, that means the session has not been started. So if we wrap our session start call in this if statement, this will get rid of that warning. So on the artist page, our session has not been started, so we want to start it. We want to initialize it. On artist details, we're calling session start in auth, so we don't want to call it again here. So this should get rid of that warning. So we'll try it out. Again, still works on artists. I'm still logged in. But if I go to add, now we don't get that warning. So session start only needs to be called one time per HTTP request. And if you call it multiple times, then the PHP compiler will throw that warning. It doesn't break, but it displays that ugly error on the page. So in Chrome, I can navigate around, I can load my public page, but as soon as I go to add or edit, I'm locked. We can tell I'm not logged in because we still see register and login. So we also now need a logout feature. I can click my logout link, but I get a 404, right? That link, that page doesn't exist. So we want to build a simple logout page. It's going to be a hidden page. There's no HTML content. We basically want to clear out the session and then take the user back to the login screen. So we'll just go into our root folder. We'll make logout.php. There's only a few lines of code here. So this is my favorite PHP method. We call session destroy. It does sound angry. And we'll just take the user to login. Let's try it out. And let's see what happens now. So again, create this in the root. It doesn't go in the includes directory. So I'm logged in Firefox. I click log out. And it sort of worked, but not totally. Right? It took me to log in. What's the problem? Right. we're not actually logged out, right? I can go back and click add, and I'm still here. So the session is still there. And this is one of the goofy things. Remember, in order to do anything with the session, you actually have to call session start first, which is stupid. We have to call start in order to call destroy. One of the goofy things about PHP. Save my change. Try log out. Okay, and notice now, register and login come back. I go back to artists. I go to add or edit, and now I'm blocked. So pretty silly that we have to call the start method, but session destroy doesn't actually do anything if you don't call session start first. I know it's weird. So now we've got proper access controlled. It's a good way of putting it, Andrew. I like that. It's very Zen, very Taoist. So now we've got proper access controls on our pages. Our nav bar tells us whether we're logged in or logged out. We've learned a little bit about some of the funky things with sessions, that we've got to call session start, but you can only call it once. And now we've locked access to these pages, but I would suggest we're not done yet. So there's a few changes we now need to make here. I want to make, first of all, as an anonymous user, I still see these links. This is a bad idea. We shouldn't show users options that they don't have access to. They should be hidden. That's one thing. The second thing is we're going to need to refactor some of our code, because the changes we made at the end of last week were that when we added an artist, we wanted that artist to be tied to our account. So theoretically, we could have two different logins and we could put in different artists into the database. So what I'm going to do, I want to make a copy of this page, and then we're going to have two versions of the artist page. This one, this main artist page, we will keep, but we're going to make it so that it's a read-only page unless you're logged in. You won't see add, you won't see the delete column, and the names won't be links. It's just going to be read-only. And then it also is going to select all the artists and group them in case maybe multiple users have added the same artist. We won't see it repeated. And then we need to change our save artist page. So when we're inserting or updating, we're tying that artist to our user account that we're logged in with. So two different users can add the same artist. They're considered separate records. So first step is we want to build the My Artists page. So we'll make a new file called My Artists. For starters, I'm just going to copy all the contents from artists in here. So I'm going to go to my artists page, hit Control A. I'm going to copy everything, dump it into my artists. So we've got this filter. Sorry, we've got a duplicate. I can close up a few of the files we no longer need. Okay, so we're going to do a few things first on the artist's page. Number one, we're going to put a little authentication check around this add a new artist link. So we only want this link to appear if our user is authenticated. I'm just going to indent that. And we'll write out a little if statement here. So if not empty, our session username, echo. And then I'm going to move this link inside. Whoops, my round bracket goes up here. So now on our movies page, on our artist page, I know I keep saying movies, that's my morning application, sorry. So we've got this element that will show or hide depending on the status of our user. So when I'm logged in Firefox and go to the artist page, I'm going to see this link. But in Chrome, I will never see that. I'm going to stay anonymous. Now, somebody in my morning class asked, well, couldn't we use like a class to just hide the item? I don't recommend it because if the element is there but invisible, then it still shows up in the page source. This way, this element link doesn't even get printed to the DOM. So in Firefox, I'll log back in. And I have a link to add an artist here. In Chrome, where I'm anonymous, I don't even know that feature exists. Yes, we've blocked access to the page. When I go to edit, locked. But best, I shouldn't even see that link until I log in. And we're going to make a few other changes. So this is how we can very simply show or hide elements depending on who our user is. If they've logged in, we'll give them that link. If they're anonymous, they don't see it. So I'm also going to change my query here. I'm going to rewrite my query. I'm going to keep it, but I'm going to add a group by. And this is so that multiple users could add the same artist. And this should prevent these artist names from repeating. Let's just try this out for a moment. I'm now going to remove from this version of the page, I'm going to remove the delete column, and I want the artist names just to be plain text. So this page, there's no ability to edit or delete. This is like a master list of all the artists in the database. So I'm going to scroll down. Well, first I'm going to get rid of this actions column in my table heading. I'm going to change my table so there's only 2 columns, not 3. Just get rid of that actions. And now inside my loop, I'm going to get rid of the link. We're just going to print the artist name as text. And same, we're just going to delete. We're going to remove the delete buttons. Okay, so our table on the artist page, it only now has two columns, the artist name and genre name. And our links to click on an artist or to delete an artist, those are going to be removed. So now it's a read-only version. I'm logged in Firefox, so I still have my link here to add. But in Chrome, all I see, it's a read-only, it's just a snapshot of what's in the database. Yeah, I have no ability to change anything. So then we're going to go to the My Artists page, and we'll make some changes here. So we don't have a link to it right now, but I could browse there directly. So this page will largely be the same. I'd say we need to make two changes here. What should we do on this page, do you think? Yep, I guess three things. So yes, Mike, this page we're going to require authentication. That's true. So the main artist page will be public, but the My Artist page, well, we need to know who you are in order to show. What else will we have to do here? Right, we're going to modify the query so it will only show the artists that are attached to my user ID. I'm also going to change the title to say My Artists. And then we'll add a link in the nav bar that appears when someone logs in. So an anonymous user will not see a My Artists link. We'll maybe rename these to say like All Artists, My Artists. But the My Artist link will only be visible when somebody is signed in. So open up your My Artist page. I'm going to change the title and heading. So both the page title in my browser tab and my H1, those say My Artists. And then our query is now going to need a parameter, isn't it? Where user ID equals colon user ID. Now remember, when we logged into the site on our validate page, not only did we store the email address, the username in a session variable, but we're also storing the user ID. This is the foreign key field. We've got two session variables. We're using this one in our header, but we can use this one to filter the list of artists. So before I run my command, we're going to bind our username parameter, session, user ID, So now this is filtered. Now we haven't added, Mike, we'll have to add the authentication check at the top. We'll do that in a minute. So now I should be able to log in with different logins. And on the My Artist page, I'll see different things. Okay, so we've added the where clause and bound the parameter. So I'll try this out. Yes, it should be. Nice catch. Thank you, Yama. The parameter should be user ID. Yes. Good catch. Thanks, Connor. You found it as well. User ID, user ID. So I'm logged in as test.test.com. Go to My Artists. Interesting. Okay. I think I know why. We'll need to look in the database in a minute. Right. User ID. Oh, I maybe got the wrong. Oh, test.test.com is. Oh, we used user@gc.ca. Sorry. Okay, so this is fine. When I use test@test.com, I get no artists. I'll hop over to Chrome and log in with user@gc.ca. And now I'll try the My Artist page. So this account has a bunch of artists. This account doesn't have any. Could actually print out some kind of error here. Okay, so we have a little more to do with this, but now it's basically filtering our list properly. Okay, it's 12:53. We have a little more to do with this page, not a ton. We're gonna pause here for 10 minutes. I will upload what we've done to GitHub, and then we'll resume completing kind of the My Artist section when we come back. So give me a minute and I will get the code up on GitHub if you need to reference it.